Hello everyone, this is SpyPie here, and today I have forgotten to bring my hard drive home, so you're not going to get an intro, outro, or audio underneath. Today is Sunday, and this has to be out tomorrow, and so we're going to go through this quickly. I'm going to be going through a little bit of a guide today. The guide I want to be talking about is not about my build specifically, but the Warden class as it is. I want to go through a bunch of what makes a warden a warden. We're going to go through it, kind of quickly as we can, but let's just jump right in. I think that this is an important guide for anyone who's interested in learning how to play a warden, not exactly wanting to work off of any of the builds that you'll see on my channel or any other channel out there. This may just be a guide for someone who is interested in the class and wants to know more about it. My Warden is a very, very high critical damage monster, as I would call it, but I'm sure everyone else in my group calls it just an RI DPS. I really like physical damage. I'm not much of a magical damage dealer myself. I don't find it particularly as interesting as physical damage, but nonetheless, that is the kind of person and the kind of character that I play, so I am a bit biased in my own way. Alright everyone, so here we are in Vivek City. The reason I have come here out of all places is for this shrine right here. So we're going to be going through all the abilities like I said, but I'd like to go through some of the morphs with you as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make a donation. Even though I won't be resetting my own, we can talk about it as they are. So let's go ahead and I'm going to knock everything out of my skill trees. I will be back in just 1 second. I'd like to start things off very quickly with the Feral Guardian. The Feral Guardian is the ultimate of the Animal Companions class tree. Now, we will be just going into class, so don't expect us to go into weapon, armor, world, or any of these other things. We will just be talking about the class specifically. The Feral Guardian here is a fantastic ultimate. It's an ultimate that I like to use on almost every build I use on the Warden. Very quickly, we'll go through this ability. The Grizzly swipes at the enemy, dealing 2,300 magic damage, and sometimes swipes in front of all the, and sometimes swipes in front of itself, dealing damage to all the enemies of around 10k magic damage and stunning them for 2 seconds. Once summoned, you can use the ultimate button that you would normally use to summon it for 75 ultimate, causing the Grizzly to maul the enemy for 10k. It deals 100,000 damage to anything below 25% health, and phenomenal execute, very, very useful. So let's go into the morphs very quickly. Firstly, here we have the Eternal Guardian. This one right here is the same as we talked about before. It's the exact same bear. However, this one, whenever it dies, will instantly respawn. For you stamina people out there like myself, here is your version of it. It does the exact same thing, however, it all gets converted to physical damage. And, as you can see, for me, that does more damage than the Magicka variant. Now, so next we'll talk about Dive. Dive is a Magicka ability. Whenever you first get it, you will command a Cliff Racer to dive bomb an enemy, dealing around 5,000 magic damage. If you are more than if you are more than 7 meters away, however, you will also set the target off balance for 7 seconds. Next up, let's talk about the morphs. The morphs for Dive are Cutting Dive for stamina, as well as Screaming Cliff Racer for Magicka. The stamina version of this converts the damage into a bleed, and if the enemy is already off balance, the attack will cause it to bleed over time. All rests the same effect, which means that you can use this to essentially stack bleeds onto each other. This effect does stack, to be very clear, and the way it works out, essentially, rough estimates is for 9 birds that you will cast, you will do around 7 extra bird damage, and I'm going to call it bird damage as we go through this. And you'll do 7 extra damage, or you'll do 7 extra birds worth of damage for your 9. That's how it works out, as long as you are within 7 meters away. Great use for a bow build. I've used this on many bow builds of myself, as well as even range capabilities for physical users in fights where you are just not able to get up close. Screaming Cliff Racer is the other Magicka morph. This one here, however, the difference is that it deals 15% more damage based on how far away the enemy is. Next, let's talk about Scorch. Scorch is Scorch is one of my favorite abilities in the game. Scorch is a very fun ability to use. However, I also find this one extremely frustrating. You'll stir up a Shulk that will attack after 3 seconds, dealing 8,000 magic damage to all enemies in front of you. Note that it is in front of your character. This is not where you're looking, it is where your character is facing. That is where my issues with the ability come. However, it is a 20 by 7 meter area. Going into this, here's the stamina morph of it. What it essentially does is double the effect. So after 3 seconds, you'll have them come up and they will deal poison damage now. And then you will, after another 3 seconds, have them resurface once more. Deep Fissure, again, continuing on with the Magicka variation of this, will apply Major Breach to all enemies for 6 seconds, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 6,000. The next ability here is Swarm. Swarm is a Magicka damage ability when you first get it, as are all the abilities within the Warden class. Unleash a swarm of Flies to relentlessly attack the target, dealing around 8,000 magic damage over 10 seconds. The Flies will also apply minor vulnerability to the target, increasing the damage taken by 5%. Going into the Magicka variation of this, which I find more interesting even as a stamina character, this deals 50% more damage on every second cast, much like the Necromancer and the skulls they throw. Growing Swarm, however, is the stamina variation, and this one gets very fun. The thing with this one is that all enemies near the carrier will take half of the same amount of damage dealt to the initial target, and it is now bleed damage. Next up is the Betty Netch. The Betty Netch here will grant us Major Brutality and Sorcery for 22 seconds, equivalent to 20% weapon and spell damage. Every 5 seconds, the Bull Netch will remove 1 negative effect from us. The Blue Netch is the Magicka morph of this. This will grant us an extra 5,000 or so Magicka over the 22 seconds. And the Stamina variation does the exact same, however, with Stamina. Going forward, we have Falcon Swiftness, invoking the Spirit of Agility. This will grant us Major Expedition for 30% for 6 seconds. The morphs of these are pretty good for anyone who's looking to add a little bit of extra damage passively. Deceptive Predator here will grant us Minor Evasion, reducing all damage taken from area attacks by 10%. And Birds of Prey here will grant us Minor Berserk, increasing our damage done by 5%. Now that we have the passives filled in, let's go through the maximum potential of this. Every time one of your animal companion skills end, we will be healed for 1,260 health. Savage Beast here, whenever we cast an animal companion's ability while in combat, will generate 4 ultimate. This can occur every 8 seconds. Flourish will increase our Magicka and stamina recovery by 12% if an animal ability is slotted. Advanced Species will increase our damage done by 2% for each animal companion ability slotted as well. Now here's where things will get complicated, as I do not personally have every single one of these leveled up. I do have most of them, as you could see, as well with Winter's Embrace. So whenever I do not have one of these, I will go through the morphs to you, but you will not see them on screen. For the first skill, I'd like to go through with the green balance ability. With the green balance skill tree, I do not personally have leveled up, so we will be going through this and I will talk to you about it off screen. However, quickly I will go into what I can tell you. Swell a healing forest at the target location, instantly healing the most injured friendly target for 8,000 health. The forest will continue to heal you and your allies in the area for 2,600 health every second for 6 seconds. This also costs 90 ultimate. However, the morphs here that we have will swell a healing forest at the target again, same thing, but we will gain 20 ultimate if the initial is used on a friendly target under 50% health. swell a healing forest again with Healing Thicket, and this one will enhance the healing over time and will continue to heal you and your allies after leaving the area. Going into the next ability here, we have Fungal Growth. This one here is a fantastic heal for anyone who is not exactly a healer, and we will go through that with the Morphs here. Seed a large area of mushrooms in front of you, and that will heal for about 5,000 health. Now going into the Morphs here, affected targets will have increased magicka and stamina recovery by 15% for 20 seconds. The other one, Soothing Spores, turns this into a stamina ability. Allies near you are healed for more. That is by 15% within 8 meters of you. Next we have Healing Seed. Summon a field of flowers which blooms after 6 seconds, healing you and allies in the area for 7,000 health. An ally within the field can activate the Harvest Synergy, healing for 9,000 health over 5 seconds. The morphs get even more interesting again, whereas enemies in the field will receive less healing by 16%, as well as the other morph now heals allies as it grows, and can be activated a second time to instantly trigger the delayed heal. Next we have Living Vines. Living Vines grow on you or the lowest health ally in front of you for 10 seconds. These vines will heal you for 1,500 each time you take damage. The effect can occur every second. Going into the morphs, however, we have Leeching Vines. Leeching Vines will now apply minor lifesteal to the attackers, which will grant you 600 health every single time that you damage the target. Living Tellus 1 with Living Tellus here will heal when the effect ends for about 4,000 health. Lotus Flower. As I'm sure many people who have watched the channel will probably tell you, this is one of my favorite abilities. Embracing the Lotus Blessing, causing your light attacks to heal you for 1,300 and your fully charged heavy attacks to restore 4,000 health to you or a nearby ally within 20 seconds. Now, the morphs of this here will either grant us Major Savagery or Major Prophecy. These are the same effect, however they're swapped for magicka and stamina. Of course, this equates to roughly 2,629 crit rating. Next we have Nature's Grasp, another ability I do not have leveled up, but we will go through this as I can show you. Launch a vine to swing yourself to an ally, healing them for 16,000 health over 10 seconds. Grant yourself 3 ultimate whenever this effect is complete in combat, and this ability will scale off your highest offensive stat. The morphs of these, however, do seem quite interesting. Firstly, the bursting vines will travel faster, heal instantly, and restore up to 10 ultimate. Now the next one, it will heal both you and the ally, but continue the same ultimate generation. Next up we have Accelerated Growth. When you heal yourself or an ally under 40% health with a green bounce ability, you'll gain Major Mending, increasing your healing done by 16% for 4 seconds. Next is Nature's Gift. When you heal an ally with a green balance ability, you'll gain 250 magicka or stamina, whichever resource pool is lower. This can occur every 1 second. Emerald Moss, increasing your healing done with a green balance ability by 1% for each green balance ability you have slotted. This can go up to 2%. Whenever you activate a heal on yourself or an ally, you'll grant them minor toughness, increasing their max health by 10% for 20 seconds. Next in line, I think we should go over the Winter's Embrace. Now, I do not fully have Winter's Embrace leveled up, but that only restricts one at the end here, which will increase our magic and frost damage by 10% once leveled up all the way. Icy Aura, Frozen Armor, and Glacial Presence can all be maxed out. The only difference is this one, which is a 10% buff, not a 5%. Going into it, however, we have Sleet Storm. Sleet Storm twists a violent storm around you, dealing 4,009 frost damage every 1 second for 8 seconds. Enemies around me will reduce their movement speed by 40%, and you and You and nearby allies will gain major protection, reducing our damage taken by 10%. Going through the morphs here, the difference is that it will increase our max magicka after activating, or we can have it increase the snare potency up to 70%, and apply the chilled status effect to enemies hit, but at the expense of damage done. The damage done loss is quite dramatic, as about half damage. The ultimate itself, however, costs about 200 and can be used quite regularly. Frost Cloak is next on the list here. Frost Cloak will wrap a thick ice around you and your allies, granting them major resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 6,000 for 20 seconds. The next one is Expansive Frost Cloak, which will increase the radius and reduce the cost. How much will it reduce the cost? Well, about by 1/3. Ice Fortress here is a great ability as well, which will grant us major protection, increase the duration as the ability ranks up. This will mean a 5% damage reduction all around. Both of these are fantastic choices. I personally choose Frostcloak. Impaling Shards is next on our list here. Conjure an icy shard around you to skewer enemies in the area. This will deal 830 frost damage every 1 second for 12 seconds. Enemies hit are overcome with bitter cold, reducing their movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. This damage is done based off your max health and has a higher chance to apply the chilled status effect, which is great. Going into the morphs here, we have Gripping Shards. This will also immobilize enemies around you whenever you cast. Winter's Revenge now will be able to be summoned at a target location instead of at the ground. This will deal damage based on your max spell damage and magicka instead of your health. Arctic Wind, a fantastic heal, I believe. This will envelop us, instantly healing us for 4,000 health and an additional 500 every 1 second for 5 seconds. While the effect persists, wind pulse outwards, dealing 1,000 frost damage every 1 second to nearby enemies. This again scales off of our maximum health. Going into the morphs, however, we can get it to heal an initial ally nearby. Or we can take the other morph, Arctic Blast, which means that enemies hit by the damage multiple times are stunned for 4 seconds. Now, Crystallized Shards I have never personally used. However, I have heard good things from it. I will go through it, however, to you from what I can show you, and then we'll go into the morphs that I have pulled up. This one here will last for 6 seconds and will spin a shield of ice around you, absorbing up to 30k damage from 3 projectiles. Each time you absorb a projectile, you will restore 800 magicka. Now I'll talk about the morphs that I have pulled up. Crystalline Slab will absorb projectiles and launch an icy bolt back at the enemy, which will deal about 600 frost damage baseline. The other one will grant us Major Heroism, which will grant us 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds, if we absorb a projectile. Next we have Frozen Gate. Frozen Gate will summon an ancient portal after 1.5 seconds, and it will last for 15 seconds. When triggered, the enemy is teleported to us, and immobilized for 3 seconds, and deals 4,000 frost damage. You can have up to 3 Frozen Gates active at a time. I personally love this ability and use it quite regularly. This was on one of our first Warden builds, actually. Sadly, it did not make the cut later on. This one here will have the targets, whenever they are teleported, get Major Maim applied to them, which will reduce their damage done by 10% for 4 seconds. Great way to cut down a enemy whenever you are not the tank, reducing damage overall to the group, and pulling them closer in, especially with a stamina build where I use Carve. Frozen Retreat now, this one's a little bit different. An ally can activate the portal and activate Icy Escape. This will teleport them to me and grant them Major Expedition, increasing their movement speed by 30% for 8 seconds. Fantastic abilities here. Any kind of caster class can really utilize this, as well as with Frozen Device, being able to cut through a bunch of enemies even as a melee user. Now let's go through the passives really quickly. This will increase our chance to apply Shield to the enemies with Winter Embrace abilities by 200%. Enemies and allies who have been recently chilled take 10% extra critical damage and healing from me. This is another reason I've been running this regularly now with such a high crit build. Even though I don't do a lot of frost damage, I do like to deal extra critical damage. And with this, I can hit the cap on my own. Frozen Armor here will increase our physical and spell resistance by 500 for each Winter's Embrace ability slotted. Icy Aura here will reduce the effectiveness of snares applied to us by 15%, and once again I'll go through it just because this will actually end up increasing our magic and frost damage done by 10%. Great ability to use if you plan to make a Magicka caster on this class. That's an extra great buff to have. Magic damage is everywhere and so is frost damage, so fantastic. Well, that's about it for today, and I think I've gone through the entire class here. This has been a comprehensive look into all the abilities, just going through exactly what they do and what they'll provide for you. This is just a way for people to understand the class a little bit earlier before they end up trying out the class, or they don't know if they like the class yet. Maybe send them this video. Uh, I really enjoy the class. Personally, I use it to buff up a lot of abilities here. And with just simple buffs, I mean, I can take my damage to pretty good levels, as well as, raising my crit from around 20% to a 20 or to around a 32% critical chance, as well as with the frost again being able to hit the cap here on critical damage. Lotus is also one of the ways that this build stays alive. I use it quite regularly, as well as the mushrooms I use too, just for the extra stam and magicka recovery. With that active, I can really push the limits of this character, increasing my stamina recovery and magicka recovery up is just fantastic for me. And I use a lot of the builds and then what I use for a lot of my builds is a mix of both stamina and magicka, especially on my back bar, which has, as you can see, necrotic orb only for trying to push the damage that I can. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been Spy here. I know that we don't have the intro and stuff set up. That's because I forgot my hard drive, as I said again. And I was going to do Elden Hollow 2 for this video, but I got a little sidetracked and distracted, and this is what I came up with. So thank you all for watching, and that's it. Bye.